Enzymes, microbial cultures, and fermentation agents have always lived in a complicated corner of halacha, but the rise of industrial biotechnology allows us to examine them with unprecedented clarity. What makes this topic surprisingly encouraging is that halacha already developed a sophisticated framework for evaluating such helpers, long before precision fermentation existed. As a result, the principles that govern today's enzymes and growth media are not radically new. They are simply being applied to more transparent, better documented, and far more controllable technologies. The first issue concerns the origin of the microorganism itself. Halacha typically does not assign independent kashrut status to a microbe unless it is directly derived from a non-kosher organism or grown on a non-kosher substrate. In most modern precision fermentation settings, the production strains, whether yeast, fungi, bacteria, or engineered variants, are developed from laboratory stocks rather than animal tissues. Because they are grown in sterile, plant-based environments, they avoid classical problems associated with cultures once propagated on dairy whey or non-kosher meat extracts. This shift is a significant halakhic advantage. Science can now provide clean, non-animal origin documentation that earlier generations of certifiers could only approximate. Growth media present the next major halakhic touchpoint. While some older fermentation processes relied on grain-derived starches, casein hydrolysates, or complex broths containing uncertain additives, modern fermentation often uses highly refined sugars, mineral salts, amino acids, and vitamins. From a kashrut standpoint, these ingredients are much easier to trace and verify. If a medium includes a component such as tryptone or peptone sourced from animal proteins, that would raise immediate concerns. However, many biotech suppliers now produce fully vegetable-derived or synthetic analogs. The transparency of supply chains, batch numbers, certificates of analysis, and full ingredient breakdowns allows certifiers to verify purity with unprecedented confidence. This makes it far more likely that the final product can be classified as kosher and even pareve when appropriate. Processing aids, including enzymes used to catalyze reactions or break down substrates, add another layer. Halacha generally treats enzymes as ma'amidim, substances that set or transform food, and therefore gives them significant legal weight even in extremely small amounts. In traditional cheesemaking, animal rennet determined whether cheese was kosher. Today, however, most industrial enzymes are microbial, genetically engineered, or fully synthetic, which shifts halakhic evaluation into more favorable territory. A microbial enzyme grown on kosher substrates and introduced in minute quantities does not compromise kashrut status, and in many cases creates a clearer path than traditional dairy-based alternatives. A related halakhic question is whether these helpers become batel, nullified, during production. In classical halacha, a substance that is essential to creating the food, even in tiny amounts, may not be nullified if it plays a defining functional role. Precision fermentation often uses enzymes that remain outside the final product, or microbes that are filtered out entirely, effectively eliminating lingering halakhic doubt. If the helper neither remains in the finished ingredient nor derives from anything prohibited, the certification process becomes straightforward. Unlike earlier fermentation, where residues might survive into the final product, modern purification technologies create clean proteins, flavors, or vitamins with almost no physical connection to the microbial helpers that made them. Storage and equipment considerations round out the discussion. If the bioreactor or fermentation line has never processed non-kosher ingredients, is dedicated to plant-based media, and undergoes high-temperature sterilization protocols, certifiers find it much easier to approve. CIP/SIP cycles, in particular, provide a level of heat and chemical cleansing that matches or exceeds classical koshering requirements. Precision fermentation benefits immensely here. The industrial demand for sterile, contaminant-free equipment means halakhic concerns about previous use can often be resolved with confidence and without excessive intervention. Ultimately, the halakhic status of enzymes, cultures, and fermentation agents in modern food tech is far more navigable than it once was. The ability to specify every ingredient, every carbon source, every enzymatic catalyst, and every microbial strain creates a halakhic landscape defined not by guesswork, but by documentation, traceability, and scientific precision. That transparency allows rabbinic authorities to apply classical principles, ma'amid, batel, source materials, and equipment use, with clarity and consistency. And in many cases, the result is a more positive, predictable pathway to kosher status than any previous generation of food innovation could have imagined.